Welcome to the Toyota Solutions Studio. I'm Stephanie Tsai, and I just have to say I am super excited, and I'm going to geek out on this interview because Madonna Badger is a titan of the advertising industry and really a frontierswoman, I think, when it comes to fighting gender bias in advertising, which I'm so passionate about. You were the founder of Badger and Winters, your own agency. You were also the chief creative officer. So I can ask you about this ad that I was obsessed with when it came out, which is the We See Equal ad, set to the Four Non-Blondes song that was an anthem, I think, for feminism for a lot of us growing up in the 90s. Can you talk about the genesis of that ad and creatively where it came from?
The genesis is really from our client, Procter & Gamble. And they, as a company, have made an enormous effort to really stand for gender equality. And with 5 billion consumers on the planet, most of whom are women, that makes sense. So they came to us and said, we'd like for you to make a film about the gender bias that exists in the world. And so we went through an enormous amount of research and all kinds of iterations, as one can imagine, for the creative. But what it really came down to is, you know, we as a creative team, we were inspired by the fact that there are 52 different gender identifications in the world at this point, that there are so many ways that people self-identify as it comes to gender. And so when you look at trying to label people as gender, you know, that doesn't work. When you look at the idea of then trying to label fears as gender, or emotions as gender, or feelings, or actions as having a specific gender, it's completely ludicrous. Yeah. Of course those things have no gender. And so we really wanted to bring to light, in the simplest possible way, that we are all really the same. We are all really equal on every single basis that one could think about, and so that's really where the film came from.
It really, that message definitely comes across, and yet there is an emotional, I felt such a visceral reaction to that ad, especially in the moment when I see the grandma jumping off the bungee cord. So that's great as far as talking about the creative process. I wonder, as a creative person who obviously has a passion for issues of equality, where do the ideas come from? I mean, what is your own creative process? Is it through news articles? Is it through music? Is it, you know, people in your life? Where does that come from?
I am, and have always been, very moved by pop culture and by what's actually happening in the world. And I think it's the job of advertising in many ways to reflect what is happening in pop culture, and in a way that is meaningful and makes people rethink something about whatever it is that they're doing. And so, you know, for me, my process is so much about research and reading and understanding and, you know, going to the street, and we do listening labs and we talk to people and understand where they're at in their lives. And all of those pieces really come together within our creative process. And that's why so much of the footage is found footage, right? Because you can't make up real stuff.
Yeah, those are authentic moments. Did you see those on YouTube? I mean, how did you find those clips?
A lot of them on YouTube. Yeah. And some of them were from Procter & Gamble ads that they had done, but that primarily they were from YouTube. And that, you know, sort of was so important to reflect back real life. You know, the guy that was changing the diaper that kind of got, that was a cop. And you can't really tell because we had to sort of,
oh, that makes it even more poignant.
Yes,
that
exactly,
moment.
exactly. I love that. And that was a cop that, you know, we had to get rid of his insignia, et cetera. But yeah, that's what made it, I think, so great, is that it was a reflection of real life.
I think, you know, the reason why that ad resonated so much with me is that I feel like pop culture in the last few years has become, again, sort of hypersexualized when it comes to its portrayal of women, something that I'm super aware of now as a mother to a young daughter.
Yes.
So how do you view your role as the head of an ad agency in addressing that issue?
Well, we, you know, have made a stand against the objectification of women in advertising, in everything that we do. And that really came from, you know, doing a listening lab with young women about asking them how they felt about red lipstick, which was great, mm-hmm. and then asking them, you know, would you wear it for your raise? And they said, no, hell no, I would not wear that for my raise. You know, I wouldn't want to push my femininity into someone else's face. And so it was such a strange conundrum that here was something that made them feel great, and yet they were unwilling to do. And so that led to deeper and deeper and deeper research. And there has been an enormous amount of academic research mm-hmm. around the effects of objectification. Because what happens is that young women, all women, little girls, internalize that message and become self-objectifiers. Yeah. And so, you know, to the point where there's one college study where, you know, a young woman was asked to take the exact same test in a swimsuit mm-hmm. and in a sweater and a pair of jeans. Mm-hmm. And every single time she scored worse in the swimsuit. Mm-hmm. And so it takes up our precious cognitive space to self-scan and, you know, only care about that. And it also affects our young girls in terms of thinking that they need to diet, thinking they're not good enough, thinking they, you know, that their thighs can't touch.
It's insidious. It is insidious. You are a force for change. I can truly say that, and it's been such an honor to be able to speak to you about all the things you're doing. I hope that others follow your example in that industry. Thank you so much, Madonna Badger.
Thank you for having me.